The Guardian Legend is one of those games that I remember seeing commercials for all the time, but never really knew what it was supposed to be. The commercials were confusing. Was the story related to the Battle of Olympus? Were they both sequels to Zelda somehow? Who knows? So it turns out none of those things are related because Guardian Legend on the NES is actually a sequel to the 1986 MSX top-down shooter Gardic, or is it Gardic? Either way, the story is totally its own thing. The manual reads, "Long ago in a distant galaxy, an alien race sent a huge world called Naju hurtling toward Earth, loaded with cargo of mysterious life forms. During the long journey, these creatures have multiplied and become increasingly evil, and now Naju teams with evil. However, deep within this complex globe are self-destruct mechanisms that can be activated to destroy it before it reaches Earth. Now you must battle your way deep within Naju's labyrinths to destroy the alien world. You are the Guardian of Earth, and your saga will become the Guardian Legend." You play as the lone guardian tasked with navigating your way through the twisting labyrinths of Naju in order to shut down the safety devices which will cause Naju to self-destruct and save the Earth. This guardian character is awesome. She's this overpowered android woman who also turns into a spaceship. Sure, why not? There were 3 different covers to this game depending on your region. The US version looks like there's some weird wizard person staring at you across the horizon. The European version gives you an actual look at the guardian character, and the Japanese version looks like it was done by H.R. Geiger from the Alien films. Seriously, that's all sorts of creepy. Gameplay in the Guardian Legend consists of top-down shooter levels, which the game calls dungeons. These consist of a reasonably sized shoot-'em-up area with a boss fight at the end that rewards you with some sort of power-up. Then there's the labyrinth areas where you roam around on foot, sort of like in Blaster Master. These areas are non-linear, and you'll spend some time just wandering around trying to figure out where you're supposed to go, but the game does have a helpful map feature built in, which you can access by pressing select. I mentioned power-ups, and that's a big part of this game. You can fire your main weapon with the B button, and the A button fires your special weapon. You find special weapons by beating bosses in the corridors, as well as they can be purchased at shops using these chips that you find scattered here and there. There's all sorts of special weapons such as lasers, giant fireballs, side lasers, fireballs that swirl around you. There's also power-ups for your main weapon, although your main weapon will get less powerful depending on how many chips you're carrying, so you'll want to pick and choose your spots to spend money at the shops. Basically, you want to make sure you go into the dungeon areas with a full boat of chips. The cool thing is, all of your power-ups and special weapons carry over to the top-down areas. Just press the select button to pick which special weapon you want to use, and you can experiment and see which one works best for your current situation. Your main weapon starts off pretty basic, but you'll be finding special weapons and upgrades very early in the game. Some people might complain that this almost gives the player an unfair, overpowered advantage, but I felt like the balance was just right between being challenging but also being fun. I really only died if I just wasn't trying that hard. Thankfully, this isn't a one-hit and you're dead game. You have a life meter that you can also increase the capacity of, similar to Metroid. You do only get 1 life though, and once you run out of energy, the Guardian explodes and it's game over. The game does have a password system, although it's one of those overly convoluted ones. They even programmed in a password check feature so you can make sure you wrote it down correctly, and at that point, why not just throw in a battery backup, guys? Come on. That's really my only complaint about this game though. It's actually a very well done game that seamlessly blends the 2 unique styles of gameplay into one coherent and awesome experience. You have to navigate your way through the labyrinths fighting mini-bosses as well as finding keys that you need to open up the next corridor. Then you fly through the corridors to fight the big bosses. There's a wide variety of enemies, and even if giant fish monsters and oversized killer crabs don't really make any sense, they don't have to. They're just really cool to look at. So are the crazy boss battles, which are tough in their own right, but fair. The game runs very smooth, with maybe just the tiniest bit of slowdown on some of these really busy areas. The Guardian Legend was developed by Compile and released in 1988, and although this is a sequel to Gardic, it probably shares more in common with their other top-down shooter, Zandic. But I feel like the Guardian Legend handles the shooter levels much better than either of Compile's previous entries, and it also has a fantastic soundtrack, which really adds to the ambiance as you're exploring the labyrinths or blasting your way through the corridors. The Guardian Legend is absolutely a game you need to go out of your way to try at least once if you've never played it before. It's easily one of the top 20 games on the NES console, especially given the time and place it was released in back in 1988, and the non-linear style also lends itself to multiple playthroughs, since there are some areas you can just outright skip the first time through if you want. You may not find everything the first time around. Well, what did you think of this one? I'd be curious to hear from anyone who actually got a chance to play this when it first came out, or if you're like me and you only got a chance to sink your teeth into it more recently. As always, thank you for watching. Please don't text and drive, and I'll see you next time on Friday Night Arcade.